Welcome to This Explainer. Look, if you're working in the UN, you've probably heard the buzz about the UN 2.0 bootcamp. But today, we are completely transforming this from what might just seem like another passive item in a training catalog into your personal strategic engine for mandate delivery. We're going to bypass all the heavy jargon and look exactly at how you can translate those high-level strategies into everyday, on-the-ground management practices. So let's get right to work.
Now, if you're staring down complex mandates, rising public needs, and, let's be honest, heavily constrained resources, you might be asking yourself how on earth to make institutional change actually happen. We know reform fatigue is a very real thing. Nobody wants another giant binder full of theoretical strategies that literally just sit on a shelf gathering dust. You hear the buzzwords all the time, right? But how do you actually turn them into better planning, clearer decisions, and much more responsive services?
Okay, let's dive into the solution. The answer is you stepping up as a change catalyst. Think of this role as being the ultimate translator. It means becoming a leader who bridges that high-level, abstract reform language with the gritty, daily operational realities of your team. It is definitely not about learning technical concepts just to sound smart in your next meeting. It's about listening carefully to your colleagues, diagnosing the actual barriers in your workflow, and building coalitions for real, tangible improvement.
To get us there, here is our quick roadmap. We're going to cover the Future Ready UN, the Quintet of Change, the Change Catalyst Blueprint, safeguards in digital ethics, and finally, scaling cultural transformation.
Let's kick things off with Section 1, the Future Ready UN.
So, what makes the bootcamp completely unique is its DNA. It maps directly to concrete outputs. Core capabilities and strategic purpose aren't just these abstract concepts floating around in the ether. They're inextricably linked to what you actually produce during the process. We're talking about your learning agenda, your applied challenge map, and a solid 90-day action plan. This isn't just an activity to check off your HR learning list. It's a deep, strategic investment with immediate, measurable deliverables that you literally take back to your desk.
But here is a crucial trap we absolutely have to avoid. We must simplify our workflows first. A super common mistake is assuming a shiny new tool is going to automatically fix the work. But let me tell you, if you throw random digital tools at broken or overly complex processes, you don't get transformation. You just automate confusion at a much faster speed. We have to redesign our workflows with human-centered logic before we ever even think about picking out digital tools.
Moving right along to Section 2, the Quintet of Change.
These 5 capabilities, data, digital, innovation, strategic foresight, and behavioral science, make up this quintet of change. Now, you'll often hear them discussed totally in isolation, but they actually serve as interlocking gears. Working alone, they're kind of limited, but when you combine them into one integrated operating discipline, they become incredibly powerful, drastically strengthening your overall judgment and project delivery. Let's break them down one by one. First up, we have data. And listen, data isn't just for decoration or making pretty static reports for donors. It's what defines the exact problem we need to solve. Dashboards should actively provoke action. They have to answer critical management questions and reveal hidden inequalities, like, say, noticing a sudden drop in service access for a specific demographic, so we can make evidence-based choices about our resources rather than just guessing. Then we have strategic foresight. Now, foresight isn't about having some magic crystal ball to perfectly predict the future. Actually, scratch that, it's nothing like a crystal ball. It's about anticipatory preparation. It's this really disciplined process of looking at early warnings and plausible future scenarios so we can establish no-regret actions. It basically allows us to build solid contingency plans way before a sudden crisis forces us into rushed, reactive decisions. Next up, we leverage digital and innovation. Digital tools improve our reach and our everyday efficiency, but we use innovation to test new solutions through safe, structured learning under real uncertainty. Think of it like a laboratory. We define a clear problem, test a small solution, measure the feedback from the ground, and then decide whether to adapt it, scale it, or just kill it completely. It's all about disciplined experimentation, not reckless gambling. Finally, behavioral science. This reminds us of a fundamental truth. Human beings don't change just because a top-down policy says they should. We love our routines. True adoption depends heavily on timing, trust, existing habits, and current workload. We have to design change that actively reduces friction to make new habits actually stick, whether that's by tweaking how we communicate or simply how we run our weekly meetings.
All right, let's jump into Section 3, the Change Catalyst Blueprint. This four-stage approach shifts your mindset entirely. You transition from being a passive student simply absorbing theory to a highly active, engaged leader. You prepare before the boot camp with real-world problems straight from your own desk. You test concepts actively while you're there. You implement with a highly structured plan. And crucially, you share those templates with your colleagues so the value multiplies across your whole office.
Which brings us perfectly to the implementation pathway. Look, we've all been to great workshops, right? But without a disciplined 30, 60, 90-day plan, complete with rigid deadlines and clear evidence requirements, even the absolute best training will remain completely invisible when you get back to the workplace. You really have to sequence quick wins in the first 30 days to build team confidence and then systematically move toward deep institutional changes.
Next up, Section 4, Safeguards and Digital Ethics. A future-ready UN cannot measure success just by high adoption rates in headquarters. We must rigorously examine who is being excluded. Digital inclusion means looking at varying connectivity constraints in the field because, honestly, an app that requires high-speed Wi-Fi is totally useless in remote areas. It means considering language differences and accessibility needs to ensure vulnerable users are never left behind by our own well-intentioned reforms.
And when it comes to bringing in entirely new technologies like AI, we rely on this specific playbook for controlled experimentation. This is exactly what protects the organization from reckless novelty. By defining the problem, testing small, and ensuring strict human oversight and robust data protection, we ensure that we're using innovation responsibly, rather than just blindly chasing the latest tech trend.
But remember, absolutely none of this works without psychological safety. You can have the most expensive digital tools and the most pristine data sets in the world, but if your team operates in a culture of fear, innovation simply dies on the vine. Leadership must actively support proportionate risk-taking. We need conditions where staff can speak honestly, test ideas, and most importantly, report failures without fear of punishment.
And finally, Section 5, Scaling Cultural Transformation.
So, how do you actually sustain the momentum once the excitement of the training event is over? Well, by capturing practical templates and building really strong peer communities. These communities of practice meet periodically to exchange real use cases and discuss the obstacles they're facing. Being a change agent can sometimes feel incredibly isolating, but this network drastically reduces that isolation and keeps everyone connected to the goal of continuous improvement. We absolutely need to shift the myth of the boot camp as just an isolated one-off training event that you do and then quickly forget about. Instead, it must become the reality of everyday managerial decisions. It's about taking these frameworks off the island, so to speak, and weaving them into the integrated way you and your team actually work, plan, and deliver essential services every single day. It really all boils down to this. UN 2.0 is more than an agenda. It becomes a way of working that supports stronger results in complex environments. The true institutional value is realized only when curiosity, evidence-informed planning, responsible technology, and deep inclusion transition from being special projects to completely normal daily habits. That is how we deliver stronger results despite the immense complexity we face on the ground. So as you prepare to embark on your journey as a change catalyst, I want to leave you with this final provocative thought. What will be your first no-regret action tomorrow morning? Look at your current challenges, choose one small practical step, and begin your transformation. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you on the next one.